Hello and welcome once again to one of my videos. Today we are going to look at taxonomy, which is actually a lot of fun, all right? And it is taxonomy is the classification of organisms, right? Um, if you were to take what would you call these organisms? Think about it for a minute, right? Are these animals? Are these plants? Are they fungi? Right? How about this organism right here? Right? You don't know what this is, right? Right? It's a snail, but how would you categorize them, right? So, what was the purpose of the questions I just asked you right now, right? Perhaps you didn't know the name of the first organism or what it belonged to. Perhaps you knew the common name of the second organism, but didn't know the name of the exact species, right? Because there's many mollusks or there's many other things that have shells on or live in shells, right? If not, that's okay because we're going to solve that problem by learning about taxonomy, right? And taxonomy is how scientists categorize organisms. Now, you might ask yourself, why is it important to give them a name or categorize them? Think about it, right? Whenever you look around your room right now, right? Do you have things your clothes just laying about, or your books, or your shoes, or do you organize these things? Why do you organize them, right? Why is it important for them to have names, right? Let's talk about it. To organize the immense number of living organisms on Earth into manageable groups for the purpose of study. So scientists need to be able to study these organisms, and it's better since there's so many living things if they can put them in groups to provide each organism on Earth a unique, universally acceptable name which allows people around the world to communicate, confident they are talking about the same organism. That's why organisms have scientific names, right? And you've heard some of these scientific names, right? As humans, right? We are Homo sapiens, right? The reason why this is important is because you can call a lion in one language, or you could call them a león in another language. But if you refer to them by their scientific name, then you don't. There's no mix-up as to what animal you're talking about, right? There is a need for a system, right? For many years, scientists and other naturalists used to use common names to describe organisms that they were working with, right? This was confusing because there were either multiple organisms with the same common name, like a rose, or a single organism with many common names like a chinook, spring, king, Thai salmon, right? So Linus to the rescue. After trying other systems, scientists around the world settled on a system developed by Swedish botanist Carlos Linnaeus. This system was called binomial nomenclature, which literally means two name meanings, right? And there's a picture of him. That's the guy you can thank for all those really um, cool scientific names for creatures, for organisms, right? Binomial nomenclature, right? Each organism gets its own two-part specific name, usually derived from Latin. Example, a grizzly bear is Ursus arctos. And so, if you were to mention Ursus arctos to a scientist, they knew specifically which animal you were talking about. The first word is called the genus, and the second word is called the species, right? And we're gonna find out right now how there's a whole layer of names in the system for naming. But the most important thing to know is that those last two categories, the genus and the species, give us the name of a creature, right? The first letter of the genus is always capitalized, like Ursus, the first letter of the species is always lowercase. The name is either italicized or underlined. The genus. The genus name refers to a relatively small group of similar organisms to which this particular organism belongs, right? For example, the grizzly bear, Ursus arctos, the black American bear, Ursus americanus, and the polar bear, Ursus maritimus, all belong to the same genus, Ursus. Can you guess what that genus covers? Right? Indeed, it covers bears. So you have these are all different bears, but they're not the same organism, right? They're not the same animal, and that's why you need the species to differentiate, right? You know this guy, right? There's 7 levels of classification. There's actually you could consider an eighth one, which is the domain, but we're going to be focusing here in this particular presentation on the other 7, right? So you have kingdom at the top, you have phylum, you have class, you have order, you have family, you have genus, and you have species, right? In this animal here belongs to the kingdom of Animalia. Its phylum is Chordata, meaning it's got a backbone, right? Its class is Mammalia, meaning it is a mammal. Its order is Carnivora, meaning it's carnivore. Its family is Canidae, right? Meaning it's got those the referring to their teeth, right? Its genus is Canis and its species is Familiarius. Canis familiarius would be the name of this particular dog. Okay. Now, one way that you can remember these things is KPCOFGS. King Philip, come over for good soup. Kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. Right. There's 6 kingdoms in life. You have Archaebacteria, Eubacteria, Protista, fungi, Plantae, and Animalia. Right. You're familiar with most of these animals and plants and also fungi. And the others exist as well, but they are too tiny usually for you to be able to see. All right. Kingdom Archaeobacteria, they're unicellular, very small. They're prokaryotic. Remember we talked about this, right? There's no nucleus membrane to bound the organelles. It's got no nucleus. They live in very harsh environments, right? And they share common characteristics with other unicellular organisms, right? You sometimes find these at the bottom of the sea, right, in those steam pipes. Kingdom Eubacteria, they're unicellular, again, very small. They're also prokaryotic, meaning they don't have a nucleus. They're found almost in all environments, right? And you have 3 basic shapes. You have spherical, rod-shaped, and spiral-shaped. And here are pictures of some of these, right? You might remember some of these from last week when we looked at a prokaryotic cell. You also have the kingdom Protista. They're eukaryotic, right? They're larger than bacteria. They contain a nucleus, right? They live in a variety of environments. It's a catch-all group for eukaryotes, which don't fit into other categories, right? The other smaller organisms are classified because they're prokaryotes as bacteria, but Protista, they're not quite bacteria, right? They're bigger and they do have a nucleus, right? So you kind of put a lot of different organisms here that don't quite belong. They're kind of they could be animal-like, plant-like, and fungi-like organisms, right? And here are pictures of them. You could see that these Protista are more complex, right, than just your regular bacteria. And of course, you have the kingdom fungi. They are multicellular eukaryotes, meaning they have multiple, they have a nucleus. They're heterotrophic, which means they consume other organisms for food, right? They actually consume, like a lot of fungi, what they do is they'll consume like decaying things in their around their environment. They lack motility, meaning they can't move, right? Like a mushroom can't move. And their walls are made of chitin, all right? And here is, of course, an example of this organ. So remember, mushrooms are not plants, right? They're fungi, all right? Kingdom Plantae, right? They are also multicellular eukaryotes. They're autotrophic, right? Auto meaning self. They make their own food using photosynthesis, right? They're non-motile for the most part, right? You don't see trees moving around or bushes moving around, and their cell walls are actually made of cellulose. And of course, you see these all over. They make our world beautiful, right? Let's look now at kingdom Animalia, right? These are also multicellular eukaryotes, right? This is the kingdom you and I belong to. We are heterotrophic, meaning we have to eat other organisms for food, whether they be plants, for those of us that, or for some of us that might be vegan, or those of us that do eat meat, right? But we don't create our own food, right? Those are phototrophic organisms. We are motile, right? Some only in certain life stages, but we do get to move around. But we don't have cell walls. Okay, we don't have cell walls. Plants do that. Okay, and here's a picture of course, a rhino, and that is the end. I will go ahead and tell you about the fun activity for uh, this week. Thank you, and we'll talk to you later.